Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 of Hardwick Soft Life, the podcast. This is Melissa L. Atkinson, and I'm super glad that you're here with me today. We're actually in my living room on my couch in my most favorite place to be. I figured I'd want to get really comfy because this is a long story to tell. And I also want to thank everyone who tuned in to episode 0. I did not expect the level of support and encouragement and love that I received from that. So I want to thank you guys. Making this podcast has been definitely a leap of faith for me. And I fully appreciate the safe space that we're creating together, because ultimately, this is not just a safe space being created by myself for people to tune in. This is also a safe space that's being created by the people who are tuning in for me to come in and continue telling you guys these stories. So I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't tuned in, I don't know why you haven't. Go back and listen to episode 0 and then come back here and meet me here on my couch today. So today's episode is called Arrested But Not Defined. I went back and forth trying to figure out how I should break this one up, because I didn't realize how long my story really is until I started telling it. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I made an episode right before this one and it was trash. I recorded it and I listened to it and I was like, this is some hot trash and I'm not putting this out there. So ultimately I decided I'm going to keep this at 1 episode because I don't believe in doing cliffhangers. I find nothing satisfying about watching, hearing, reading cliffhanger endings. And so I'm just not going to do that to you guys. And yeah, just sit tight. It's going to be a long little episode. I hope you guys are comfortable. I hope you got some snacks. I hope you have a bevy with you. I hope that you are going to be doing chores that are going to take you a long time, and that you're able to listen to all of this. I know I got my snacks. So yeah, let's just jump into it, right? So have you ever had one of those moments where you're actively in a situation and you stop and you ask yourself, how the fuck did I end up here? So for me, I'm not gonna lie, that wasn't just a passing thought. It was like a mantra in my life. So during one of the hardest chapters of my life, I probably asked myself that question so many times that I know that I've lost count, because I just don't remember how many times I asked myself that. I remember all 3 times that I was in the back of a cop car, I asked myself, how the fuck did I get here? I know that the cops asked me, how did I end up there? And I know that every time I ended up in jail, where I was, in the back in jail. So I got arrested 3 times, but only 2 out of the 3 times I was in the back. And every time I ended up back there, I know that the inmates themselves were all looking at me like, what did you do to get arrested? You don't even look like you belong here. So what's your story? And every time I did give the same answer, that answer was, I really don't know. I got into a car accident. After the first 5 times that I answered that question with that answer, I probably answered it dead on the inside by the time we got to the 50th, the 60th, the 20th, the 30th. And I'm over exaggerating here, but by the time we got to the point where I had answered that question so many times, I know that I was dead on the inside responding to that. So today we're going to talk about the car accident that literally and figuratively turned my life upside down and got me trapped in this system that is expensive, is complicated, and honestly is designed for a lot of us to fail. So get comfy, grab a drink, grab a snack, and be ready to laugh, because if there's one thing that I'm going to do, I'm gonna laugh, and I'm gonna especially laugh about this crazy mess that I call my life, because honestly, thinking about it sometimes, I can't even believe that I lived through this. This is comparable to us walking around with masks in 2020 and not going to work. I really can't believe that that was a part of my life. So get comfy, y'all. So in life, we all have these moments that we might split into a before and after situation. I know a lot of people say I'm in my whatever era now, but for me, it's a before and an after. So for me, that moment that splits the before and after is January 18th, 2015. That is the day of my car accident. Before that day, I was 23. I was in the National Guard and I was working full-time as an HR clerk at Tampa General Hospital. On paper, it looked like I had my life together. But if we're going to be for real, and I'm going to be so for real with you guys, I hated my life. I literally couldn't stand my life at all. And I felt like I was not in control of my life, even from that point. I hated my life because my mom ran my life. And I was paying half of the bills. I was sleeping on the couch in our apartment, and I was still being treated like a kid. not even just like a regular kid. Like I was being treated like an unruly kid. Like I had done something wrong. And I'm like, lady, I've accomplished more than anybody in our immediate family and our extended family at this point in my life. And I'm helping out so much. I deserve some respect. You know, that's all I really wanted for was some respect. But I'm Hispanic, and so that's not what you get in a Hispanic household. If your family needs something, you help to provide that. And it doesn't matter how old you get, you're still a child. And if you're living with your mom, even if you're paying half the bills, even if your name is on the lease, even if it doesn't matter that you're in the military, none of that matters. None of that matters at all. You are a child and you are going to get treated like one, and that's that. And on top of that, when you come from a Latin background, your parents may feel like you owe them your future because they did so much for you in their past. So a lot of our parents made a lot of sacrifices to come over to this country, and I appreciate that so much because obviously I don't want to be growing up in Honduras. It's a third world country. So of course, I'm grateful that I'm in America, and I'm grateful to my parents for that. But there's this mentality that runs deep of like, well, I came to this country so you could have this kind of life. And so now this is what you're going to do with your life because I said so. And I was fine with that until I went to military training the year prior. When I went to military training the year prior is when I started seeing other people my age and they were living their lives. And I was like, well, I want to live my own life. Like I'm 23 years old. I don't want to be a provider. I'm tired. I'm tired of being a provider. I'm tired of being the mediator. I'm tired of sleeping on the couch. I'm sick and tired of this. And so my mom and I started butting heads a lot when I came back because I did feel that sense of like, no, I want to be independent and I can be independent. And I am sorry for whatever, troubles you're having right now, but those are not my troubles. And in a Hispanic household that is not received well, you are going to be deemed as disrespectful. And I was, and we were butting heads almost every other day because you cannot have two women of the household. You can only have one woman of the household. And so it wasn't working out. I was tired as hell. So the day before my car accident, so the day before January 18, 2015, my mom and I had one of those stupid fights again. I really don't even remember what we argued about the day before my accident, but I do remember being like, I'm not about to be here all day tomorrow because I just know that this woman is going to start a fight with me about nothing. And I don't feel like doing it. I don't have the energy to do this right now. So I made plans for myself the following day. I was like, all right, boom, I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to bring my camera with me. I had just gotten the EOS Canon 300 and I was ready to take some pictures. And then after that, I had a date planned. I was newly single and I thought to myself, let me just go out on a date. This should be a good time. And so I woke up the next day and as I'm pulling out my neighborhood, I see an accident, like a really bad accident too. And I'm like, damn, that's a really bad accident. I hope I don't get into one. That was my first thought. Now, I can be very superstitious sometimes. And I had the feeling in the gut of my stomach, like in the pit of my stomach to like just make a U-turn and go back home. But I was like, nah, I'm not about to go back home because I just don't want to deal with it. And I already got these plans. So I'm just going to keep going on about my day. And that's what I did. I spent the day driving around, taking pictures. I felt like, damn, I got some dope ass pictures today. And by 4 p.m., I was already sitting at my date with the guy in West Shore. And when I tell you that date, it was awful. Like, it was terrible. He was weird. He kept trying to, like, touch me. I wasn't feeling it at all. I was like, yo, like, this guy is ODing right now. I need to get up out of here. Like, I need to get out of this situation. And when I was 23, I was a much different person than I am today. Obviously, I'm a married woman, but I've been in situations where a date has been bad or the person is just doing too much. And I tell them, like, I've told this people, like, hey, you're doing too much. I'm not liking it. I'm gonna leave. I was not that straightforward when I was 23 years old. At 23, I was polite almost to a fault. So I made an excuse about needing to get to work early the next day, which wasn't a complete lie. I mean, I used to go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, essentially. So I wasn't lying, but it's like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. What do you mean you're leaving? But yeah, I was out of there. I'm like, all right, sayonara. And I got into my car. Now, I had had a few glasses of wine while I was at this date with this person. And I didn't feel drunk. I didn't feel, I felt pretty composed. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to get in my car and I'm going to get home. And I wasn't too far away from West Shore when I got into my car accident. I literally got into my car accident like a few miles away over on Bayshore Boulevard. And if you're familiar with the Tampa area, West Shore and Bayshore they pretty much like run into one another. So if I was in West Shore and I was going into Bayshore to get to Brandon, oh honey, I wasn't even like a third of the way home at that point. And so I got into the car accident just a few miles away from where that date was. And that is when my life changed forever. The crash happened so fast that I don't remember the impact at all. I just remember I was waking up and I was somewhere completely different. I was at work when I opened my eyes, but I wasn't working. I'm staring up at the ceiling and I'm being rushed around in a stretcher. And I realize, oh shit, I'm a patient right now. Like I'm in the hospital. And then I look around a little bit more, kind of get oriented. And I'm like, my mom is here. So the nurse, everyone, they're like cutting my clothes off and repositioning me in the stretcher as soon as we get into one of the rooms. And as they're cutting my clothes off, all I remember was making straight eye contact with my mom and being like, I'm sorry. I borrowed one of your undershirts today, one of your nice ones. Mind you, I just went through a near fatal car accident. I split the bottom half of my face open and I had no idea. I'm getting connected to all these things and all I could think about was this stupid ass shirt. And my mom looked at me and was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay, Melissa. You're totally okay. As I'm, getting, I guess, settled into the room, if you will, because, they're putting the brace on my neck. It's just a lot of stuff happening, a lot of commotion at one time. The nurses are asking me questions. They're asking me my medical stuff, like how tall are you? How much do you weigh? So on and so forth. And I'm answering. At this point, I still have no idea that I've split my face open completely, like from the lip down to the bottom of my chin. No clue at all what's going on. And so I'm like answering all these questions. And my mom ended up calling a friend of mine thinking that I was with this friend. So they came and my brother showed up a little bit after and then a family friend showed up. So there were 4 people in total sitting in my room. At this point, everything had kind of died down a little bit. And my mom just kept putting gauze over my face, I remember. And I remember looking up and internally I was so pissed. I was like, what is this lady doing to me? Like, why does she keep... My poor mother, why does she keep putting gauze over my face? Like she always gotta be doing something extra. And because everyone looks sad, the thing about me is I'm always trying to cheer people up and I always want to crack jokes. And so I'm like cracking jokes and I'm trying to figure out, why does everybody look so sad? Why in the hell does my mom keep putting this gauze over my face? Like she's ruining my fun. And then the doctor comes in because, it normally takes a long time for a doctor to come in, and check you out. Like the nurses will have done their thing. The techs will have done their thing. But the doctor is always the last person to come. And this was a Sunday. So it's not like the doctor was just walking around. And the doctor looked at my face, pulled up the gauze, looked down at my face and said, oh no, you guys need to call the plastic surgeon. Like we need to page the plastic surgeon. I'm not touching that. So that's actually when I looked up and was like, did I hurt my face? And my mom looked down at me and goes, yes, Melissa, you hurt your face. And I just stayed quiet for a second because my whole life, my mom used to put such a huge importance on not hurting my face and not hurting my self, my body, like getting scrapes or cuts or bruises or anything. And her mentality behind that, it's a fear-based mentality, right? But my mom used to always tell me, oh, if you keep going that way, you're never going to find a nice man to marry. No man is going to want to marry you with scrapes on your legs and on your face and blah, 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 blah. And I've always been a tomboy. Like I grew up a tomboy. My mom could never understand that about me. That is one of the biggest disagreements that we have in this life. My mom is very dainty and very delicate as a woman, and I am a little bit more rough around the edges. I'm a little bit more rah-rah. And so I stayed quiet at that moment, and then I looked up at her, and I cracked what I thought was going to be my last joke of the night. Because at that point, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So I look at her and I say, well, I guess I hurt my face, but at least I made it count. And my mom laughed. And then we stayed quiet for a little bit. And my mom looks down at me and she goes, Melissa, I have a question. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And she says, why are you speaking to me in Spanish? Why are you speaking to me in Spanish? And we both laugh because I rarely ever speak Spanish. Spanish is my first language. I learned Spanish first because my parents didn't really speak a lot of English when I was born. And then I learned to speak English, and English is just my more prominent language. I was so high off of morphine that I didn't even realize that I had switched languages at any point. And so that was, a funny, like, kind of bonding moment that we had. And sometime during the night, a detective came to my room. And the detective was like, hey, is this the room of Melissa Laboriel? And I'm like, yeah, that's me, as best as I could. Because I was talking, but it really wasn't working for me. Even after they patched my face back up, like, it was a mess. You really couldn't understand me. And so I was like, yeah, like, that's me. And the cop asked, did you have anything to drink? And honestly, knowing now what I know versus what I knew then, that cop or detective should have never even come to my room to talk to me because I was high off of morphine. Like, you cannot talk to someone who is not in their right state of mind. But I didn't know him, so I answered him and I said, yes, I did. I had a few glasses of wine. And so the detective actually left me his business card and said, give me a call when you get out of here and when you're feeling better, and we're gonna have to talk. And so I thought nothing of it. I've never been in trouble with the law before. As a matter of fact, I'm in the military at this point. Why would I think anything out of the ordinary is going on? I feel like, oh, the cop is doing his job and he just got to talk to me and ask me a few questions. No big deal. So I got discharged that night from the hospital, recovered for about a month or two until I got cleared to go back to work. And even when I got cleared to go back to work, my face wasn't fully healed. So when you split your chin in half, you're actually damaging all of the nerves that are for your bottom lip. So the bottom half of my face really didn't have any feeling at that point, and I wasn't able to control like drooling, and I couldn't really smile, and I couldn't really speak as properly as I should. It took me a long time to actually get back to normal. I mean, those first few months were brutal. I remember I was on a liquid diet, so I lost weight that I didn't even have because I've always been pretty thin. So I was on a liquid diet, drinking soup from a straw. I was eating pudding, I was eating Jell-O. That was my regular diet every day for the first month. And then in the second month, I was able to eat solids and stuff, but like barely. And I was back at work and I was carrying a napkin around because I just kept drooling. And I was just completely embarrassed. I was like, wow, like, I cannot believe that this is my reality. I don't know what I'm gonna look like. And people would make comments to me, which ultimately ended up, it motivated me to go do something else later on, which is pretty dope. And we'll get into that one day. But yeah, at that moment, I'm like, yo, I feel crazy right now. And I'm calling the insurance companies, and you guys don't know how crazy it is to be calling an insurance company and you can't pronounce your name because my last name was Laboriel. It has a B in the middle of it. And so in order for me to pronounce my last name, I have to put my lips together. And I couldn't do that because I wasn't fully recovered. So imagine calling the insurance company, giving your name. They cannot understand what your name is because it's not like my last name was Smith. And then you can't spell your last name because you literally have to say B in the middle of it. It was just, all of it was a hot mess. But anyways, the first month passed, the second month passed, and I was finally back at work. I was on my way to recovery, and I finally gave that detective a phone call. And when I called that detective, he told me, hey, Melissa, I've got your purse here at the police station. So if you don't mind, coming to pick it up, you can come get it. And I said, okay, well, I don't really drive right now. So is it okay if I send someone to come pick up my purse? And he was like, no, you've got to come pick up your purse, which I didn't think anything of it at that time. I thought, well, that's kind of weird, but maybe he just wants to make sure that the purse is being given to me because my ID was in that purse, and he just wants to be sure. So I didn't think much of it. I didn't question it. That's another thing is, like, when I was young, I didn't question things. I was very much raised to be almost in fear and blindly obedient to anyone who was in an authoritative position. So whether it be a detective, whether it be a cop, whether it be my mother, whether it be my job, I wasn't used to, and then I was in the military on top of that, I wasn't used to questioning things. I just did as I was told because you didn't want to find out you didn't want to find out what would be the consequences if you didn't. So I go to the police station to go and pick up my purse. I'm thinking this is going to be a quick in and out situation. And the cop tells me, hey, Melissa, I just want to have a conversation with you. And I've got my colleague, such and such, some other detective, some other cop. I don't know who the hell it was. So they take me into another room and he reads me my Miranda rights and says, hey, we're just going to talk about the accident. That's okay, right? And I'm 23. I've never been in trouble. I have no lawyer at this point. And I go, okay, that's fine. I have nothing to hide because I'm thinking the cop is my friend. And I have nothing, I want to tell you guys right now, I have nothing against cops at all. I feel like they have a job to do. And I feel like with any job in this life, you can become jaded. You can get to the point where you're just trying to get through it. I also don't know the reality of the other person that I hit, their family. And I know that if the roles were reversed, if someone's car flipped on top of my car and just landed on me in the middle of the day while I was driving, I'm very sure my family would be on the cop's neck to hurry up and find out what is going on so that person can get prosecuted. So I'm not by any means like upset with these cops. I will say that there is some tactics that are used by people in law enforcement. And a lot of the time, if you're Black, if you're young, if you don't know what's going on, you can definitely get kind of tricked into a situation. So I had no lawyer. I go into the office with these two people and they read me my Miranda rights and we start talking about the car accident. He asked me, so, how many glasses of wine did you have exactly? I'm like, oh, well, I had 2, but they were large glasses of wine. Are you on any medication? And I was like, oh, well, I take this weight gain medicine. Sometimes it makes me tired, but I do stop taking it, right before the weekend in case I want to have a drink or two. They asked me, do you ever drive under the influence? Is this like a normal occurrence for you? And I let them know, no, this is not a normal occurrence for me. As a matter of fact, it was my first and only time having ever driven, under the influence. And then the mood starts to change. The mood changes to like they play a good cop, bad cop. Well, are you sure this is your first time? I mean, you're 23 years old. And I'm looking at them like, what the fuck is going on up in here? Like, what are you guys doing? And so I don't outwardly say this. I start crying. I started crying and I think they felt sorry for me and they got what they needed out of me. And I left. And what they got and what I didn't know back then that I do know now is that I willingly gave in my verbal confession to a DUI with serious bodily injury because I believe that up until that point, they really didn't have a case. But now I've gone in and I've verbally said what I said with no lawyer, no guidance, no help, no nothing. And that is the beginning of everything. This decision that I made to go and get this purse set the stage for a year of fear because I really didn't get sentenced until 2016, of uncertainty, and then eventually it ended in probation. That's how I ended up getting trapped in the system. So this probably occurred March of 2015. The car accident happened January of 2015. And then by this point, I actually lawyered up after that because I just felt like I needed to have a lawyer at this point. I didn't know what I was doing, so I needed a lawyer. And honestly, like that lawyer probably could give 2 shits about me. If I'm being 100% honest with everyone, I mean, I was poor. We were already living paycheck to paycheck. So I wasn't able to pay the lawyer in full up front. I had to pay everything in payments. My mom and I were like scrounging money together to figure it out. And so that lawyer probably could care less about my case. He really didn't fight for me. And it is what it is. For every cause, there is an effect. For every, thing that you do, there's always a consequence. So I'm not even mad about the fact that there was a consequence. Like it's not even like I expected to just get off, right? But I would expect that the person would maybe care a little bit more. But like I said, everyone has a career, and in their careers, it is very easy to get jaded. So May 2016 rolls around, and that is actually my sentencing time. So it was May 31st of 2016. By this point, I had just turned 25, 2 weeks prior to the date that we were going in for sentencing. And my lawyer gave me two options. He was like, listen, you're either going to go to jail for 2 years, or you're going to end up having probation for 5 years, meaning it'll be over in 2021. And when he was telling me those dates, it just seemed so far away, right? I mean, I just turned 25. I was 23 when this happened, almost 24. This is such a long process. In 5 years of probation, I'm going to be 30 by the time I finish with this situation. And so I was like, okay, well, what exactly does probation entail? You know, I don't want to go to jail. Nobody wants to go to jail, first and foremost. Like, no one is like, yeah, sign me up for 2 years of jail. No, like, give me the 5 years probation, but explain to me, what does that mean? And so he was like, you won't have a curfew or anything. You'll just have to make sure that you follow the law for 5 years and just check in with your probation officer, and you'll be fine. And so I thought to myself, that is not a bad deal. I don't break the law. I don't do anything that's going to get me in jail. And checking in with someone, bet. I already do that on my regular day-to-day life. I could do this. This is too easy. And so I told him, okay, well, I'll take the 5 years probation. And, you know, that's what we came up with. That's what I got on my sentencing date. When you get sentenced, you leave the court. You do everything in one day. You leave the court. And then from there, you go to like 2, 3 other places. And one of those places is where you meet your probation officer for the first time. And another one is like where you register as a felon in the system. Like, they take your fingerprints, they do the whole shenanigans, and you go meet your probation officer right after that. So I went and met my probation officer. And I just remember the first time stepping into that office. Like, it feels so surreal thinking about it. But I remember there was one other offender there. It was me, my mother, and her boyfriend. And I'm sitting in this little mint collared shirt and a gray skirt and these little black flats. And my hair was in a little ponytail. And the guy next to me looks at me and goes, "Is it your first time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my first time." He's like, "Well, you got to go over to that corner of the room and grab this paper and this clipboard, and you've got to fill it out before you go into that room with your probation officer. And they're going to ask you some questions. It's not going to be that bad. Also, you're very pretty. Can I have your phone number?" And I'm like, yo, is this man dead ass right now? Like, we're in a probation office. Like, I'm not giving you my phone number. Like, what is this? My mom looked absolutely horrified. She was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that we're in here right now. Are you sure you can do this? And I'm like, this is really not a big deal. You know, I was sad, and I felt like a failure, like looking at my mom at that point. But I also knew, okay, this is just what I got to do. Like, it's not a big deal. Luckily, I hadn't lost my job. Like, nothing like terrible had happened to me at this point. So I go in and I meet the probation officer for the first time, and she explains to me what it's going to be like, and that's it. I just go home and I continue living my life regularly. I wish that I could tell you guys that that's the end, that I got through my 5 years of probation and it was a peaceful 5 years and nothing happened to me. But that's not the case. That's not what happened at all, y'all. Whew. Oh my goodness. So we're actually going to fast forward 2 years. We're going to fast forward to 2018. I am now age 27. I have been in probation for 2 years. It's been 3 years since my car accident. I've had the same probation officer the whole time. I still live in the same place. However, things have changed. My brother went to university, and we were so excited for that. And then my mom moved to Texas. So I'm living alone. The lease is now just under my name. I haven't found a new place to live because I had this lease before I was a felon. And I know that I won't be able to rent anywhere else under my name because I'm a felon. I'm a criminal. No one will rent to me. And so I'm struggling to pay the rent because when it was half and half with my mom, it was too high of a price point for either one of us to just pay it alone. So we paid it half and half, and it was okay. It was manageable. But now I'm paying for this by myself, and not to mention 2 years have passed, meaning rent prices in Brandon, Florida are going up. I'm still working in Tampa, so I have to Uber every day to work. So I'm taking an Uber to work, taking an Uber back. I'm trying to pay rent for an apartment that I can no longer afford. The other paycheck is for transportation to work, which doesn't leave me a lot of leeway, for any other bills in between or for just life in general. So I kind of was playing like a Ponzi scheme with my bills at this time, right? Like I'd pay a little bit of this, but then I would take, some of that. And then it was crazy. And so 2 years have passed. I've been seeing the same probation officer. My life is very different from when I started this process. I'm by myself now. And my probation officer looks at me during one of my appointments and says, "Hey, Melissa, they're restructuring our department and the way that we conquer and divide, our offenders. And so you're going to have a new probation officer probably anytime here soon." And honestly, I really didn't care about none of that. I was like, I don't give a shit about none of this. Like, it's been 2 years. I thought that I was going to be done with this process, quickly, just because I'm an upstanding citizen. I'm paying off my money. I'm coming here and seeing you. I'm struggling. I don't care about that. Like, that's not a big deal in the grand scheme of events for me. And she introduced me to the new probation officer very soon after that conversation. And her demeanor was amazing. I loved this probation officer. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, this lady sees me for me, not for Melissa Laboriel, the criminal. Like, she sees me. She was like, "What are you doing in here? You don't belong in here. You seem like a good kid. We're going to get you in. We're going to get you out. And I'm going to help you out. Here are the things that you need to have done. And we're just going to set a goal sheet." She was awesome. Like, I probably would have been done with probation very quickly if I had gotten to stay with her. And so remember I told you guys, like, I was in the process of probably gonna get evicted and I could not find a place to live. And so I ended up getting evicted, and then I ended up living in this hotel, which was like in the Holiday Inn, extended Holiday Inn. And it was across the street from where I was working at that time. I was working at Amgen Biopharmaceutical Company, and I had just started working there not too long before all of this. And I was really excited about the job. Like, that was the one thing that I had going for me, because it was the most money that I had ever made. And I felt like I could really pull myself out of this hole because I had a good job. And so, yes, I was living in a really weird, seedy hotel across the street that's like right next to a strip club, but my job made things so much better, and I had this probation officer that I just knew was going to help get me on the right path. And no sooner than a month had passed from when I met her, and she actually gave me a phone call and said, "Hey, Melissa, basically it's been great to know you, but because of the address of where you are right now, because of after your eviction, you're no longer assigned to me. You're assigned to someone else. And so here's the phone number to that probation officer, and just give her a call and set up a meeting, and you should be good to go. Best wishes to you." So I said, okay, well, that sucks, but let me call this new probation officer. Y'all, I called this probation officer, and as soon as she answered the phone, as soon as she said hello, and she said her name, I got this weird feeling. Remember that weird feeling in the pit of my stomach that I told you guys about the day of my accident? I got that same feeling when I heard this lady's voice. And she was like, "Well, where are you living right now?" And so I told her, "Hey, I'm living in a hotel momentarily. I'm actively looking for a place to live." And she asked me some questions about where do I work and this, that, and the third. And then she said, "I'll come to you." And I said, okay. So she asked me for she already had the address, so she confirmed it with me. And she told me that she would stop by September 28th of 2018. Which was a Sunday. Okay, cool. Like, that's my day off. I'll be here. You guys, when I tell you I do not like to play with the law, I don't like to play with the law. Like, if you tell me, I've always been very obedient. If you tell me to do something, now that I'm older, I might question you on it. And if you give me a good enough reason, I'll do it. But back then, if you tell me you need to be here on this day at this time, oh, I'm going to be there. Matter of fact, I'll do you one better. I'm not moving from where I am. I'm going to be here all day. And that's exactly what I did. I stayed in that hotel room all day, minus the times that I took my dog out very briefly. I stayed in that room all day. I ordered all my food in. I probably did take a nap at some point in the day, but honestly, like, I had a dog with me and she would bark if there were any noises. So None of that happened. I'm not gonna say that the lady didn't come to the door. I'm not gonna say that. What I will say is I don't know if maybe she had the wrong door because no one came to my door. So I thought that was weird, but also probation officers, if they're busy, sometimes they won't do what they say that they were gonna do. We can't do that as an offender, but a probation officer, you know, they're overworked, they're underpaid, they got other stuff going on. She probably had something better to do on a Sunday than come and check on me at some shitty hotel. I didn't think anything of it. I went back to work on Monday. I kept living my life regularly. And then I decided to give a phone call to her office because I was like, that's so weird that no one has checked in on me. So I called the office. I left a voicemail. And in the voicemail, I left behind my first and last name, my case number, the address of where I was living at the time, which was that hotel. And then I gave her something more. I said, listen, on this date, I am actually moving. I found a place to live. I will be renting a room in a woman's house. So I packed up my shit. I left the hotel. I went to move at this lady's house in Tampa Heights, and I was excited. I'm like, okay, the dots are starting to line up. You know, like I got evicted, and yes, I'm going through all this bullshit, but I've got a good paying job at a prestigious company. I found a place to live in a nice location. I'm living in Tampa Heights. Cool, we're lit. I still don't hear anything from this lady, so I call again. And when I call, she finally answered, and she tells me, hey, let's set up a meeting. And I go, okay, cool, like that's what I've been trying to do with you, you know? And so she's like, let's set up the meeting for October 16th, which that was a Tuesday. So my only question to her was, can I come before work? And she said, sure. And I go, okay, I could do that, no problem. So October 16th rolls around, I get ready, I've got my briefcase, I've got on my nice clothes, my office clothes. I had on this little button-up white top, I had a gray pants, I had these pink heels that I love so much. They were like these light pink heels. So at this point, I was already in my heel era. Like I was starting to wear heels every single day. And I'm ready to go to work. I'm ready to go to this appointment at this lady's office. And so I'm sitting in there and I'm waiting, and finally she brings me to the back and we start chatting a little bit. And then all of a sudden a cop comes into the office. I'm not fazed by this at all. And the reason why is because cops are always coming in and out of the probation offices. They're here to pick up an inmate sometimes. Sometimes they just want to say hi to the probation officer. Whatever the case it was, like none of this is fazing me at all because I've been in the system already for 2 years at this point. So whatever, it's not a big deal. And the cop stays in the room. The probation officer looks at me. I look at the two of them like, okay, what's going on? And the probation officer tells me, Melissa, you're under arrest. So I look at everyone in this room and I'm like, for what? Like, I thought she was joking. I thought she was joking because I really couldn't understand what I was getting arrested for. And I'm a goofy person. If you haven't picked up on it, I am a very goofy person. And so I actually did laugh a little bit because, and I don't know what exactly possessed me to laugh at this most inappropriate time ever, but I actually did laugh. So I'd already asked for what? And she said, for failure to report. So I still kept smiling because what the fuck you mean I'm getting arrested for failure to report? I'm literally sitting right in front of you. And I remember looking down at myself, like I looked down and I looked up at her and I said, but I'm here. And then I go, as a matter of fact, not only am I here, I'm here early. I'm here early so I could leave early, so I could go to work early, so I could get overtime because I need the money, because I need to pay you people. I need to pay my bills. What are you talking about? And she said, well, on September 28th, when I came to visit you, you weren't there. And because you weren't there, you failed to report for the month of September. And I go, but I called you and I left you a voicemail because no one came to my door. Did you hear my voicemail? No, I mean, what's going on? Anyways, by this point, I was not laughing anymore, and it was very evident that I was not going to talk myself out of this one, even though normally it's my superpower to talk myself through anything, but it wasn't going to work this time, and the cop actually felt really, really sorry for me. The cop felt so bad for me that he didn't even cuff me. He was just like, hey, I'm not gonna cuff you, just have some integrity while we're walking to the car. And I looked at him and was like, bro, don't talk to me about integrity. I was in the military. I know all about integrity. And he looks at me and goes, what the hell happened? And I go, I don't know, like you're witnessing it. Like I have no idea what's going on. So we get to the cop car and I not cuffed and he gives me the opportunity to make a few phone calls because obviously I was thrown off by this. So the first phone call that I made was to my mom because she's living in Texas. And my mom used to call me every day, 3 times a day at least. So I told her, I said, hey, I'm giving you a call to let you know that I'm in the back of a cop car. I'm getting arrested. And my mom actually said, Melissa, you know, in her accent, she goes, Melissa, this is not funny. Because if you haven't noticed, y'all, I am a goofball. I joke a lot. And I tell her, I go, Mom, I'm not even joking with you. Like, this is not a joke. This is not a drill. I am actually in the back of the cop car. I am getting arrested. So I just want to let you know that you're probably not going to hear from me. My second phone call was to the woman that I was living in her house. I was renting a room in her house. I gave her a call and I asked her, could she come meet me at the probation office because I needed her to pick up my briefcase. I was absolutely mortified calling this lady. Because can you imagine? She's already giving me the opportunity to live with her. I told her my whole story about my car accident, how I'm a felon now, how I can't find a place to live. That can be explained. But you've only known me for a few weeks, and now I'm calling you to come pick up my briefcase because I'm going to jail. You gotta be kidding me. Like, you don't even know me from a can of paint. Like, this is crazy. And so she came, she picked me, she came and she picked up my briefcase and you know, with her recommendation, I got a lawyer and it took me 3 days to get out of jail that first time. And so when you are on probation and you get arrested for violating your probation, there is no, oh, I'm going to bond out today and get out by the end of the day. It's not possible. You already are on probation. So because you violated, you have to stay there until you get a lawyer and then you have to go to court. And then the lawyer has to fight for you to get out. Or if you can't afford a lawyer, then you have to wait 14 days to get a public defender appointed to you. And then once you're assigned a public defender, then you'll see if you're gonna get out of jail. And so I actually spent 3 days in jail. And I remember when I first rolled up over there. Remember, I was wearing pink heels, gray pants, a white top. I'm on my way to work. So I'm dressed, clean cut, and ready for work. And I'm sitting. There's like an area once you get frisked and you get sent into the area, there's like a bunch of chairs. It's like a waiting room and you sit down in that waiting room. And so I'm sitting like the way I normally would, which obviously I'm in my couch right now, so I'm comfortable, but I'm sitting the way I normally would in the sense that like my back is straight, my feet are on the ground. I have very good posture and I overhear these girls talking, and they're actually sitting behind me. And I overhear the one girl tell the other girl, oh my God, why the fuck is she sitting like that? I can't even stand to look at her. I swear I'm gonna beat her ass when we get back there. And I'm listening and I'm like, who could this girl be talking about? She is beefing with somebody. And then I look around the waiting area and I realize that this girl is talking about me. She wants to beat my ass. And I'm like, oh my God, like, why am I gonna get my ass beat? Like, I just got to jail. I don't want no smoke. I don't want no beef with nobody. Like, I don't even know exactly why I'm here, but I'm here, right? Anyways, I get changed out. I go to the back. I get changed out. I call my mom again. I tell her that I'm there. I end up staying there for 3 days, but during those 3 days, I did what my superpower was, and I made friends while I was in jail. No one could figure out why I was in jail. The inmates kept asking me why I was in jail. A lot of the girls were like, you meet people from all different walks of life in all different scenarios, and a lot of them actually are really, really sad. So I remember this one older woman looking at me and telling me, you're not a prostitute. You're not from the street, are you? And I go, no, I'm not. I said, how could you tell? She's like, you have nice teeth. She goes, most of the girls that are on the street are on drugs. They don't have nice teeth. Your teeth are perfect. Mind you, this lady had no teeth. And I was looking at her like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's not my life. Then someone else asked me, did I steal something? Because they were like, well, you came in dressed nice, so maybe you're a thief. I'm like, no, I didn't steal nothing. I ended up making friends with a lot of the women that were in jail with me. I did not get my ass beat while I was in jail, thankfully, because I feel like those people got hands, and I didn't want that kind of fight. And I made a lot of friends while I was in jail, and I told them all my story, actually, and none of them could understand why I was there. And not only could none of them understand why I was there, but they were cheering for me. So when I did finally get out after those 3 days, they were clapping when I came back and was like, yo, I'm getting out. And they're like, yes, like Laboriel. You know, nobody calls you by first name, which is funny because obviously I was in the military before where everyone called me Laboriel. And now I'm in jail with my new jail friends and they're all calling me Laboriel and clapping for me. And I got out after 3 days. When you leave jail, you're supposed to report to your probation officer immediately. And so that's what I did. I went back to this lady. And I just want to let you guys know, by the way, I lost my job also because you can't just not show up for 3 days of work and not really have a reason, right? I don't think they ever found out that I was arrested, but I got fired. So I reported back to my probation officer, and y'all, when I tell you, it took all the self-control in the world for me to not flip over a table in this woman's office when I saw her. She asked me for my address, my new address where I was living, the address that I told her over the voicemail when I left the voicemail. And when I told her my address, this woman looked at me dead in my face and said, oh, you're not even assigned to me. You were assigned to me when you were living at that hotel. But now that you live in this place, you're no longer assigned to me. You actually have a different probation officer. I'm not your probation officer. I wanted to punch that lady across the face so badly because when I finally comprehended what she was telling me, what she was saying is that because I was living in a different area, she was never my probation officer, not even at the time of my arrest, which means that I got arrested and I spent 3 days in jail for no fucking reason and lost my job that I was so proud of for no reason. And now I'm unemployed. I have a second arrest. And yeah, like that's just what we're doing right now. And she could care less. And there was nothing that anybody could do. Like we can't rewind, right? So there's nothing that I can do or anyone can do. And so I left there and I reported to my actual probation officer. And I asked my new probation officer, is there any way that I can file a report on this lady? Is there any way that I can complain to someone? Because that's my mentality, right? Like I'm gonna complain about you. I'm gonna call your manager on you. That is not the reality when you are an offender. When you're a criminal, it is your word against this other person's words. Although it was a discrepancy, I'm a criminal. I have no rights. I'm a felon. It's her word against my word. And my probation officer, the new one, actually advised me maybe to just wait until the whole scenario was over, my whole probation was over, because maybe I'd have a stronger leg to stand on. And so I thought to myself, you know what? It is some bullshit, but I'm going to wait. And when I'm done with this, I'm going to file a grievance against this person because this is absolutely unjust behavior. And I was scared too, because I feel like when you are in the system, things can get retaliatory. So if you piss off the wrong person, they can retaliate against you. And like I said before, you're a criminal. You have no rights. So it's your word against them. And I didn't want to make anyone mad. I was not about that life. Like the same way I was in jail, like, yo, I'm just going to lay low and make friends and just go on about my business. That's the same way I felt about probation. I'm just going to lay low. I'm not going to be a problem to these people. And I'm going to go on about my business. And so that's what I did until 2021. 2021 was the magic year. 2021 was the year that I finally was going to get off probation and I was going to turn 30. And so that probation officer that I had following my first arrest was no longer my probation officer. At this point, I had already gotten switched to another probation officer. So I'm on my fourth official probation officer. I'm not even going to count the lady that I liked so much just because I only met her once. So at this point, I'm on my fourth probation officer, and I am at the tail end of my probation. I am 2 months away from my probation ending, and I'm 2 months away, of course, from my 30th birthday. So I am absolutely ecstatic. At this point in time, we had already gone through the pandemic because it was 2021. I wasn't working a corporate job anymore because barely anybody was working a corporate job. I had gotten laid off and I was working as a server at a restaurant, and I was having fun doing it. It was my first time having a fun job. I never had a fun job in my 20s. Here I am, 29 years old. I've always had very serious, stuffy jobs. I was in the military. I worked in human resources. Like, finally, I'm kind of having some fun. This whole thing is about to be over. I was living in my apartment, which was a small studio. It was probably the size of the studio that I actually record my podcast in normally. I loved my little apartment. I mean, my bed and my couch were in the same room, and my kitchen could only fit one person in it at a time. But I was a little proud of myself. I was like, you know what? I'm almost at the end of this road, finally, and then I can just move on with my life and just leave this part of my life behind. So we're in March of 2021, and because of COVID, we were no longer doing in-office visits, which to me was a huge relief because I hated going into that office. Every time I went into that office, there was someone trying to get my phone number. There were pedophiles in there that probably thought I was younger than what I was, trying to get close to me. It just was a very, not a good place to go. So I was happy that I was just able to talk to my PO from the comfort of my own home. And so in March of 2021, we had a phone call. She mentioned to me that I was missing a class or certification that I needed in order for me to be done with probation. Because we were at the very end, we wanted to make sure that I had done everything that I needed to do. So she asked me about this class, and I told her, I haven't done it. To which she responded, okay, I need this done by the end of the day. So I told her, okay, well, no problem. I am working today. And again, I told you I was a server. So because I am working as a server, I can do it in between tables, but it probably won't get done right away. So if that's okay with you, I can have it done. And so she goes, okay, that's fine. And I said, sure, I will email it to you before end of day. I do the class, I do it in between class. I do the class, I finish it in between tables, just like I said I would. And I email it over to my probation officer. She didn't respond that day. She responded on Monday instead. And her response was an email saying, email received. So I go on about my business. That Monday was done, Tuesday passes, and Wednesday I am pouring myself a glass of wine after work that night. I turn on my TV, I'm about to watch a documentary because I am a documentary fanatic, and I sit on my couch. No sooner had I sat on my couch, I heard a knock at my door. This is March 9th, 2021. And the reason why I remember the date is because I was staying up so I could text one of my friends happy birthday the following day. So I hear a knock at my door, and I'm like, it's like 10:30 at night. That's weird. So I look through the peephole, and I see two cops standing at my doorstep. Now, I'm not thinking that I'm getting arrested because I didn't do anything wrong, and there's no reason for me to be arrested. I'm just sitting in my house. Like, I'm chilling, just like how you see me chilling right now. And I open the door like a caca head because I'm thinking that maybe something is going on in my neighborhood. And the cop looks at me when I open the door, and he says, are you Melissa Laboriel? By this point, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm sick and tired of people asking me if I'm Melissa Laboriel, because every time someone asks me if I'm Melissa Laboriel, it never ends okay. It never ends well. I look at the cop and I say, yes, I am Melissa Laboriel. And he goes, okay. And I ask him, is everything all right? And he says, can you let us in so your neighbors aren't in your business? So I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Remember I told you, I'm always asking myself, what is happening and how did I get here? When the cops come into my apartment, they let me know that I am being arrested because I violated my probation. I told the cops, no, you must be mistaken. There's no way that I violated my probation. The reason why I know that there's no way that I violated my probation is because I just talked to my probation officer last Friday, and she just sent me an email this Monday saying that she had all the information that she needed from me. So this has to be a mistake. So the cop was like, okay, well, if you want, you can give her a call. So I called her cell phone because, lady, you got me all the way fucked up. So I called her cell phone and no one answered because, of course, why would she answer me, right? At this point, I'm already with the cops. So I can't fight. I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going with you, because they already know I'm me. They're there to pick me up. And a fun story or fun fact for you guys is when a cop is there to pick you up for a violation of your probation, they don't exactly know what you did to violate the probation. They just know that they were sent there by the probation officer to pick you up and that you're going to jail. I get in the car with them. I get in the car with one of them and the other one is in a cop car. Why they sent 2 cop cars for me, I have no idea, because I have not committed any violent crimes. So what was I really gonna do? And I'm 5'5", and at that point, I think I was like 110 pounds, if that. So what was I really gonna do to anybody? But I digress. They drive me over to the station. I go through the same thing. They frisk me. They sit me down. I'm asking everybody and their mother, basically, why am I in jail? And finally, I call my mom and I tell her, hey, Mom, it's me. I'm in jail. I don't know why. I need you to do a few things for me, please. I instruct her to call my job, which luckily I was working at a restaurant. They are very forgiving if you get arrested, so long as you tell them like with enough time. And I asked my mom if she could then call the probation officer sometime the next day just to ask why was I in jail, because I really could not understand how I violated my probation at all. So my mom said, okay, and she was really worried about me, which funny thing is both times that I was in jail, everybody was so worried and I was in there vibing. Like, I mean, it's not fun, but I made the most of the situation that I was in. I mean, I'm not gonna go in there and be sad and miserable. Like, what more can I do? I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna make friends with the people that are in there because this is a point of survival, and yeah, I'm gonna get through it. I'm just gonna get out. My mom called the probation officer and I was able to speak to my mom the following day. And what she told me was absolutely alarming. What she told me was that the probation officer told her that I had not intentionally done anything wrong and that she was missing documentation for me having to finish a class that I was supposed to have done. And so when my mom told me this over the phone, I told my mom, Ma, I actually completed that class back in 2017. Actually, I needed to take that certificate with me to the DMV when I reinstated my license in 2020. I reinstated it last year, the year prior. And my mom was like, oh, you have that? And I go, yeah, just go to my apartment. The key is under the mat. Go and open up this drawer. There's an envelope inside. Inside of that envelope, take a picture of the certificate. Please email it to this lady so I could get out of jail and we'll go from there. My mother did exactly all of those things. And when she got on the phone with the probation officer actually told her, well, she's already in jail, so we'll just have to let the court decide. I'm sorry, but she's already in jail. We're gonna have to let the court decide is insane. That is absolutely diabolical. Because what do you mean? You literally can just say, oh, I made a mistake. This offender already had this documentation that I needed. She's not supposed to be in jail. But why would you do that, right? You're not gonna admit that you made a mistake. That's exactly what happened. I actually had to lawyer up and I got a lawyer so I got arrested on Wednesday night, but because it was so late Wednesday night, I couldn't go to morning court on Thursday morning. So I didn't go to morning court till Friday. So obviously you can't get a lawyer over the weekend. So I got one on Monday. I didn't get out of there until Wednesday. I was in jail for a full week, y'all. I was in jail for a whole week. And again, the inmates were asking me, what did you do to get up in here? I actually made friends in jail. I told people my story. They were cheering for me to get out of there. And I did get out of there. But before I got out of there, they held like a court and the judge was asking, okay, well, has this person done all of their community service hours? How far into probation are they? Have they paid restitution? And the answer to all of these questions were yes. And also I was going to be done with probation in like 2 months. And because I had done everything except for one thing, which is pay my court costs, which is absolutely unheard of. Like no one ever pays their court costs because no one can afford to pay their court costs. They held that against me because there was no actual reason for me to be in jail this time. They were like, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna suspend your license. Keep in mind, I had just reinstated my license the year prior. It cost me like $400 something. They said, we're gonna suspend your license until you pay the court costs, which amount to $1,500. And actually, we're just gonna let you finish probation today. You're done. I was so pissed when I got out of jail. after that week. And the reason why I was pissed is because that probation officer could have easily, the same way she said she was missing one document, she could have told me that she was missing another document. It would have been so simple. I would have just sent it to her had I have known. Also, because it was a mistake, she could have easily said that it was a mistake and I could have just gotten out of probation. But of course, that's not what happened. So yeah, I got off probation 2 months earlier, but I went to jail and I had to immediately pay $1,500 that otherwise I could have made payment plans for, or I could have just paid later on, or whatever the case may be. That is the story of both arrests that I had, and how both times they were literally for things that were out of my control. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys. By the time I was done with all of that, I did not care to file a grievance on anyone. I did not care to argue with anything. I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted to get the hell up out of there and continue on with my life. And that is exactly what I did. I paid my court costs off the month after. So in June of 2021, I scraped together all my money, my tips, whatever, and I paid the $1,500 in full. And that is the end of that story. That is the end of that story, but some key takeaways that I want to give to you guys is the importance of actually knowing your rights. At the start of this story, there were so many things that if I had known my rights and if I had not just blindly obeyed an authoritative figure, I probably wouldn't have even ended up going through all of the things that I did go through. I also, resilience, it was key here. I gained a lot of resilience through these experiences. Like after those 5 years, I definitely was not the same person that I was even on the day of my car accident when I was 23 years old. Granted, you're not supposed to stay the same person, but I definitely was a lot different. In this period of my life, even though it was the most difficult period of my life where I dealt with eviction, where I dealt with uncertainty, where I dealt with multiple arrests, where I dealt with a lot of stuff just in a snowball. It just kept snowballing. It has shaped the person that I am today, and I am grateful to be the person that I am today. And as I was recalling this story with my husband yesterday, he got a little bit sad and said, I just hate hearing that all of these things happen to you, Melissa, because my husband, which we'll get into this story one day, my husband is a sober man, but my husband was a raging alcoholic before. And my husband has done a lot of things, and he actually was able to get off. And we talk about the difference between being a white man and a black woman. So ultimately, did I commit a crime? Yes, I did. I got behind the wheel after having had a few drinks. I was very irresponsible that day. But if you look at the grand scheme, I was an upstanding citizen. I was part of the military, never been in trouble before. I just happened to make a mistake and it altered the course of my life greatly. So he was sad hearing it. And while we discussed it, I told him not to be sad, because if these things hadn't happened in my life, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I probably would have never met him. But yeah, all of that to say that it sucked. That shit was crazy. Can't believe that I was able to condense it into a podcast episode. I'm glad that you guys, if you've hung on till the end, I'm glad that you did. Thank you for being here with me today. I just want to let you guys know that next episode I am the most excited about. So I hope that you guys tune in to the next episode. I actually am interviewing someone. His name is Ricky Lane. And Ricky Lane is a person who also went through the system, but he went through the system much differently than I did. He was actually incarcerated during the majority, actually, if not his whole 20s. And he is a person that is also doing well on the other side now. And so now that he's out, I was able to get an interview with him and find out what he's been up to and find out what that process was like for him. Because I know for me, it was life-altering, stressful, all of that. I thank you guys for spending time with me today. I hope you guys tune into the next episode. It will drop December 4th at 6 p.m. But until then, stay resilient, always know your rights, and I hope you guys have the best rest of the week that you can. Y'all take care. Like and subscribe if you're not already.